All right, so I'm here to talk a little bit about servant leadership. Um, I think a lot of organizations and people really fantasize about this idea of organization or of servant leadership. They think servant leadership is the best thing, the easiest thing to do out there, and it's not. I want to take you back and look at this statue where I think is a beautiful picture of servant leadership. A lot of times we talk about Jesus being the ultimate servant leader. Um, and I first want to ask you this question. Would you take this position? As a leader of an organization, and you think about this, would you take this position? So Jesus is the one washing the feet of his disciples. We find this in John 13. Would you take this position of washing the feet of your employees? Think about that. Okay, so just giving you a little background context of this picture. Um, so before this, all the disciples are arguing. They're arguing to each other. Which one of us is the greatest? Who's the greatest among us? That's what they're arguing with each other. Their pride is like up here at this point. They're arguing with one another. Who am I greater? Who's the greatest among us? Now this is completely against like what Jesus was teaching. Like if you were a leader, you'd get so mad and be like, "What are you guys doing? What are you thinking?" And then also just looking at this in context. So during this time, they're wearing sandals and they're traveling on foot. So their feet are really dirty and stinky. So you got to think about this. And then when they're going to eat at this table, in which Jesus does this action, these are low riding tables. So like their feet are pretty close to one another in this context when you're eating with one another. Now Jesus gets down from the head of the table. He stands up, rises up, and then wraps the garment around his waist and begins to wash his disciples' feet. Pretty much just blowing their mind out of the water, because this was very paradoxical thinking of what they were doing. Jesus was doing the task of a servant. So a servant of a household. The servant of a household would do this. And Jesus was taking this upon himself. Like the lowliest task among being a servant, he was doing. And it really reminds me of this verse in Matthew 20:28. It says, and this is Jesus talking, "I have not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." That's Matthew 20:28. And in that, Jesus is giving his life for others. He's giving his life as a ransom for many. Again, I'm going to ask you this question. Would you take this position? As a leader, as a servant leader, would you sacrifice your life, your complete life, for others, for your employees? Would you give them your everything? I don't know how many people would. So there again, it's a very, romanticized leadership style, but not many people fully grasp and do this. The other point that I really want to make is this Jesus on Leadership book. It walks us through these 7 principles to humble your heart. First, be a follower. Number 3, find greatness in service. Number 4, take risks. Number 5, take up the towel. Number 6, share responsibility and authority. Number 7, build a team. Again, all those points and principles are not focused on self. That, going through those, it doesn't talk about focusing anywhere on yourself. But again, all those points focus on others. Building a team, sharing responsibilities, that means giving it to others. Taking up the towel, that's something you have to do but you're taking it up so you can serve the other people. Um, and in this post, what we wanted to really focus on were those key issues in servant leadership. And I think, again, it's a thing that people really want, and they talk about it. It's so awesome. I'm definitely a servant leader. Most people would classify themselves as a servant leader. I would challenge that. Would you take this position of giving your life for others, giving your life for your employees? Another issue, I think, is that humility piece, which is talked about in Jesus on leadership. But this humility piece, humble your heart. In business, I think it's so hard because we're so focused on the profit. We're focused on the competition. How do we get better than our competition out there? How are we going to one-up our competitors? And this is telling us not to do that. This is telling us completely opposite, but to focus on, not the profit, but to focus on people. A servant leader will focus on people. The other thing is not to focus on competition, but really to focus on partnership, knowing that our common goal is to serve people. So how can we best serve people? Is it through, collaboration? In here, in page 33, I want to just make this point. Servant leaders humble themselves and wait for God to exalt them. And there's two characteristics that he talks about of a servant leader, and they are humility and the ability to wait. So the humility piece is really what I'm talking about, but also this ability to wait. So many times, I think this is another key issue, we're so impatient. But really we need to just rely on God's timing, because God's timing is the best, as he talks about in this book. When I was doing my research about a servant leader, I picked Truett Cathy, who's the founder of Chick-fil-A. Now, he opened his first restaurant. It wasn't until 20 years later he opened his first Chick-fil-A. And now this Chick-fil-A has been exploded and expanding. The other thing I want to bring up is Jesus, around the age of 30, he didn't even start his ministry till then. And then his ministry didn't last very long. So in God's timing, he knew exactly of the amount of time that was needed to accomplish his mission. I can ask myself or question, why didn't God give Jesus more time to heal more people, to do more of these miraculous things? But this idea of servant leadership, you pass it on to others from generation to generation, which is making it better and doing it better. But this idea and this ability to wait as a leader, I feel in our society we don't have that. We're always on the go, 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 go. I'm too busy, you need to schedule an appointment with me. I'm too busy to have this lengthy conversation with someone. But as a servant leader, the issue is not the busyness, but it's to really focus on the person and who you're with in that time, giving them a genuine love and ample time that you truly care about them as a person. So again, I'm going to ask the question, would you take this position? It's, again, so, I'm a servant leader. It looks so great. But really, would you take this position? Would you sacrifice your time for others? Would you humble yourself? Would you wait until God is ready to move you in that direction? Would you wait to be exalted to that position? And the answer to that question is very hard. But I think these are things that we really need to think about if we want to become a servant leader. Now, I run a nonprofit organization called Simba Educational Ministries. And a lot of times what we see in nonprofit organizations or ministries overseas is we think that we're better than the people that we're serving. So again, to be paradoxical, we wanted to follow Jesus' leadership in this. So we go and wash the feet of the children and families that we sponsor. Just like Jesus did to his disciples in John 13. Here's the last picture. And when we're over there, we've had Kenyan people say to us, never would I thought in a million years would someone humble themselves enough to wash my feet. It's one of the most intimate times that we experience in our ministry. But again, I'd like to ask you, would you take this position? Because this position is a position of a servant leader. I'll leave you with this verse. It's John 13:15. And it says, finished with what I have done, I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. This is after Jesus finished washing his disciples' feet. He's given us this example of servant leadership. And he's calling us, will we continue to do this as he has done for us? This class has been amazing. Thank you for listening to my video. Again, I would ask, would you take this position of servant leadership?